Hey everybody, I hope you're having a beautiful day. Welcome to Whole Brain Functioning. I'm Annie Jubb and this is my husband, Dr. David Jubb. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about diagnostics. And David is an absolute expert in this field, and what he is going to tell us a little bit about today is what he does when somebody comes to see him and how he goes about finding out what exactly is going on inside of the body. What are the conditions of the organs? What's going on with the iridology, which is the science of looking to see how the wellness of the body is through the eyes, and all kinds of techniques, because he's sort of a barefoot shaman doctor. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do when you do a diagnostics?
Well, it's very amazing that it's possible to look at the outside and see thoroughly what's happening inside. And it's such an amazing thing that we teach our Phoenix physicians to read the overall energetics of the person's body, rather than actually what often happens in the allopath and osteopathic type of training is they're going to a manual or something and they're reading the manual and they're looking at things here basically to discover things in the body. And so we read the overall body. In this first segment, probably would be nice for us to talk a little bit about actually, the kinds of having the ability to be able to read the body. I don't want to use the term diagnostics actually, but actually it is a reading, really. That's what it really is. So it's possible to read many things. And when we're going to bring someone up in a little while, but straight away, of course, you might feel this person's hands. You can get an idea, a lot about what's going on with the adrenals.
So whether the hands are
blood
moist,
flow,
or they're dry, whether they're cold or they're warm.
Right. Texture actually of the skin itself, smoothness and creaminess of the skin can be an indication of hormones and essential fatty acids, and whether or not moisture is being transported through the connective tissue and this sort of a thing.
So how would you tell, like, if my adrenals were on, what would be indicative of this?
If Annie's adrenals were on, which some people's are, I mean, it's not uncommon actually, you would find a moistness of the skin, you would find kind of like a clamminess somewhat of the skin, indicating the adrenals on. Adrenals could be so exhausted that the person's skin is dry, thoroughly dry, and there's no adrenal function much at all. The way that we can tell adrenal function is in this latter part of this show, I'm going to bring a light to the eye, and actually when you shine a bright light in the eye, what the pupil reflex is an indication quite a bit of the autonomic nervous system, the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system that's innervating the eye, dilating our pupils or contracting the pupil. When we shine a bright light in the eye, there really should be some pupil reflexive reaction. And it is very amazing that many people living in the city environment, having eaten mostly, takeout food and this sort of thing, fried foods and this sort of a thing, may less than really have excellent adrenal function and hormones and this sort of thing. So it's possible to be able to tell these sorts of things.
Go ahead.
I was going to move on to the tongue. And I was just going to say, it's possible to be able to tell many things of internal condition of the tongue. Whether there's heat that's rising, that will be an indication actually by the color of the tongue and where the color is on the tongue. Whether the tongue has hypertrophied, meaning it's swollen a little bit on one side, or whereabouts on the tongue that actually is, gives us an indication of various places within the body that it's possible that there can be some immune condition that's occurring, or there's some inflammation. It's possible to be able to tell many of these things by the tongue. We also read the whole face and the physiognomy of the face. Lines and this sort of a thing on the face can give us quite an indication of various things that's occurring internally. The lips, of course, also, which in this latter part of this segment we're going to be talking, and we'll bring somebody out actually, and we'll do a reading, and we'll be able to totally look inside this person's body through the outside of the body. And everything that's happening, on the outside of the body is connected inside. And so the things that are happening on the outside is evidence of the things that are happening on the inside of the brain.
And so
and in the body.
in the body as well, yeah. So I notice sometimes when somebody, David will come into somebody and he'll be doing a reading, he'll be looking and checking the fingernails. What's that about? What's going on when you're doing the fingernails like this?
This part of this reading that we're going to do, we're probably one of the few organisations in this country that does this type of reading. The reading of the hand, this is around about 4,000 years old. And it comes from Sri Lanka and some islands between Sri Lanka and India. And it's about 4,000 years old. And basically, you know, I'll read the left hand of the woman and I read the right hand of the man. And basically, I'm looking to see what the relationship of the length of the fingers are in relationship to each other. And in the latter part of this program, we'll share with you how amazing it is to be able to tailor a program for what's actually occurring constitutionally for somebody. Does this person have enough water, or they have excess water in the intestinal tract? You know, how's this person's fire force, their liver? What about their ability to be able to transport oxygen and things? And what about how much electrical force and this sort of a thing is in the body, and earth and minerals and things? These types of things can be read completely from the hand. Other things that can be read by the hand, of course, also is we can tune into various places of the hand, and which is reflexing through to various areas of the body. The webbing.
So as above, so below. So in this part of the area here, you can tell a lot about the intestinal tract and the gallbladder.
When you can imagine, as a viewer at home watching the program, imagine that you were only 6 cells and every cell grew from every other cell. As every cell grew from every other cell, there is a connection, and the webbing that this hand grew out of in embryology grew out of the very same cells which occupy the colon. And it's possible to be able to feel in the webbing of the hand here and get an idea literally of actually what is happening with the gallbladder. We can look at 8 o'clock in this eye, on the right eye, which also is reflexing through to the tissue of the gallbladder and the liver. And it's possible to be able to tell any morphological or tissue changes and things that have occurred in the gallbladder and the liver by reading these signs. So I'll look up here and I can see what is the condition more or less through the eyes. I can look at the tongue. What is the condition more or less down here through the tongue and the lips and things. I can look at the face also to see what is happening here, and we can go into the webbing of the hand to find out what's happening here. And when we bring somebody up in a moment, we're going to actually do some other things. We're going to do some palpation, and we're going to do some percussion also, and listen. And this is going to give us quite an indication of the internal various condition that's occurring inside the body. So other things that we do is we tune into the pulses, and we teach our Phoenix physicians, you know, the index finger is tuned into the head on this side. This larger finger is tuned into more this mid-region, and the ring finger is tuned in down here. And so we read the pulses basically, and there's a superficial, a middle and a deep pulse, which is possible to get a sense of blood flow and this sort of a thing. The same thing is done on this side of the body to get an indication of things happening on this side. And then the other thing that's done actually with the hand is sensing the pulses and things.
Right. So stay tuned, because we're going to be right back, and David is going to do a diagnostic or a reading for somebody here in the studio audience. And I wanted to remind you that we do a free lecture every Tuesday night while we're in Manhattan, and that address is 208 West 13th Street. That's between 7th and 8th Avenue. It's right across the street from Integral Yoga. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. and welcome back to Whole Brain Functioning. I'm Annie Jubb. This is my husband, Dr. David Jubb, and today we're joined by Gary, who's Executive Director here at Community Television Station, and here on Staten Island. And David is going to give Gary a bit of a reading. And so, why don't you tell us what you're doing as you're doing it, David?
All right, so the very first thing is, we're reading the energetics of everything, basically. So I take Gary's hands and I just feel the moisture content of his hands and things. And the adrenal glands are slightly on. The hands, we have a little bit of moisture to the hands, indicating the adrenals are on, and that there's some immune challenge somewhat that Gary's having a little bit. So we can relax this just a little bit here for the moment. Okay, so now we kind of like to do a little bit of a feeling of the blood flow through the peripheral of self to get an idea actually of arteriosclerotic plaque and things like this.
And how good the circulation is.
And actually we just, if I can
help there?
Loosen that a little bit, Gary.
Let's take that off for you now.
And because I'm going to come into the thyroid and we're going to feel thyroid. Thyroid's okay. And thymus also is working okay. And then we're going to feel a little bit more, a few places to get a sense of arterial blood flow and things. All right, so next thing I'm going to do is have a quick look in your eyes. So we could take your glasses off if that's okay, Gary.
That's
One
fine.
second. All right, so you're going to look straight toward me, and I'm going to, this is a bright light, I'm going to just shine this. Okay, good. All right, so now I turn the bright light on to look to see actually whether there is any pupil reflex. And Gary has very modest amount of pupil reflex. These things actually that we're talking about today, these are all things that Gary can turn around. He can rejuvenate himself. And it's interesting that most physicians that Gary would go to, they're looking at where you are on the bell-shaped curve, and they're really thinking that they're going to bring you back on this side of the bell-shaped curve. They're going to give you a little something to fix up whatever it is that's where you are there. But they less than are thinking actually that they're going to bring you back on this side. But the things that I'm going to recommend to Gary are actually going to bring him back on this side of the bell-shaped curve. So a couple things that I noticed. It's not possible for us to cover everything that I've picked up here, but some of the really specific things we should definitely talk a little bit about. And one more time, I just. So first of all, we have a slightly underactive upper stomach. We less than are having proper hydrochloric acid to be able to break food down properly, and so Gary may be not really quite getting the benefit of that he could, because food is really less than being broken down quite properly. Hydrochloric acid is required for this. Sodium chloride, that's where the chloride molecule comes from. Most Americans tend to be sodium deplete in their blood, but having enormous amount of sodium in the tissue.
Right.
If I ate grain, that always would have robbed, and especially starch, it always would have robbed sodium chloride from my blood to make hydrochloric acid. That chloride molecule and hydrogen are combined together to make hydrochloric acid. And all the starch and things, no matter even if I did heat processed salt, a heat processed salt is a poison. And it's put into the tissue of the body away from where it could get into any other place. And basically, when people eat foods which is missing its chloride molecule, basically, which a lot of the hybridized food is, it robs elements from the body. People would be surprised to know at home, watching this program today, that deficiencies occur mostly because of what I have eaten, and not because of what I haven't eaten. Again, deficiencies occur because of what you've eaten, which was less than a whole food. So we pick up that we need more hydrochloric acid of the upper stomach, and that it really does probably require chewing the food very much, to make sure that the food is broken down properly. The other thing that I notice in Gary's eyes, as I shine the light directly back to the back of the retina, I'm looking to see through this tissue, how clear is this tissue? And we can see that Gary has about a 20% occlusion of the vitreous solution of the eyeball. We have starch and we have debris more or less right throughout the body, and this is evidence, when we look through the clear tissue here, of evidence right throughout the whole of the body. This is the beginnings of cataracts, basically, that Gary has the ability thoroughly to turn this around. And any viewer at home also, you have the ability to be able to turn this condition around. Cataracts, it's possible to turn around. You need glutathione peroxidase, and you need to be able to learn what elements make this up in the body, basically, to be able to help protect the eyes and this sort of a thing. But we should, first of all, be realizing what we need to eliminate from the diet, which is less than excellent, by finding what is excellent and bringing this in, and doing it more or less this way. So in the time frame that we have, we can see also that there's a little bit of slight redness to the sclera, which is the white of the eye, which is an indication that we have some inflammation. So now the other thing is I'm looking at the pupils themselves, and I can see that the pupil is slightly not so in the center of the iris, the color part of the eye, but the pupil itself is slightly moved toward the forehead, which is an indication that we have some stress which has been occurring in this region in here, which we're going to find in a moment. So we're just going to look at a few things, basically. Tilt your head back, Gary, just for one moment. See, now I can look at the nostrils and see how the heart is functioning, basically, the rhythm of the heart, and basically Gary has a relatively okay rhythm. Let's have a quick look at your tongue. Okay, now we can see some scalloping of the tongue on this side and also on this side. We have some mostly scalloping on this side, which is an indication that Gary has some pancreas challenges. We have scalloping on this side also, which is indication we have a little bit slight liver compromising, and the colon on both sides, basically. Let's have a quick look again. The pallor of the tongue is an indication of congestion or clearness and this sort of a thing. And basically, we have a little bit of a damp, wet condition. Gary has a little bit of a damp, wet condition inside. So we'll go straight to the hand. I can see that 8 o'clock in the eye here, we have a morphological tissue change, which is an indication that we have bile stones. I'll come over to the hand and feel. I want to do what we can to get this in this time frame for everybody here. I'm feeling in here, I can feel that Gary's ducts are basically open, and that's quite surprising. Both primary and secondary ducts of his bile bladder, which is the fluid which flows from the liver into the bile, both ducts are open, but we have bile stones. And we have about 440 stones, around about 440 stones, that has impeded the flow of bile. We can relax his hand now for one moment, Gary. The other thing.
How uncommon is that to have that many stones? Because
okay,
that's
all
relatively
right.
common.
It's not uncommon for people to have, typically between 150 and maybe 500 stones,
really,
actually.
People come in to our lectures that we do, and they bring in, after their gallbladder flushed, and they bring in really enormous things full of stones. And sometimes they're very, very tiny people, and they'll bring in stones and stones. So it's quite common.
Okay, so let's see. We can sense basically also too for Gary that the hydrochloric acid is less than really breaking minerals down properly because we can see the color of Gary's hair and things. Now it is amazing that it's possible to read cells, and I have many people in our family who have got back the original color of their hair, yes. And so that